Act III of the Ghost Sonata by August Strindberg, translated by Edwin Bjorkman. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit librivox.org. Act III. A room furnished in rather bizarre fashion. The general effect of it is oriental. Hyacinths of different colors are scattered everywhere. On the mantel shelf of the fireplace is seen a huge seated Buddha, in whose lap rests a bulb. From that bulb rises the stalk of a shallot, Allium ascalonicum, spreading aloft its almost globular cluster of white star-like flowers. An open door in the rear wall, toward the right-hand side, leads to the round room, where the colonel and the mummy are seated. They don't stir and don't utter a word. A part of the death screen is also visible. Another door at the left leads to the pantry and the kitchen. The young lady, Adele, and the student are discovered near a table. She is seated at her harp, and he stands beside her.
Sing to my flowers.
Is this the flower of your soul?
The one and only. Are you fond of the hyacinth?
I love it above all other flowers. I love its virginal shape, rising straight and slender out of the bulb that rests on the water and sends its pure white rootlets down into the colorless fluid. I love the color of it, whether innocently white as snow or sweetly yellow as honey, whether youthfully pink or maturely red, and above all, if blue, with the deep-eyed, faith-inspiring blue of the morning sky. I love these flowers, one and all, love them more than pearls or gold, and have loved them ever since I was a child. I have always admired them, too, because they possess every handsome quality that I lack. And yet...
What?
My love is unrequited. These beautiful blossoms hate me.
How do you mean?
Their fragrance, powerful and pure as the winds of early spring, which have passed over melting snow, it seems to confuse my senses, to make me deaf and blind, to crowd me out of the room, to bombard me with poisoned arrows that hurt my heart and set my head on fire. Do you know the legend of that flower?
Tell me about it.
Let us first interpret its symbolism. The bulb is the earth, resting on the water or buried in the soil. From that the stalk rises, straight as the axis of the universe. At the upper end appear the six-pointed, star-like flowers.
Above the earth. The stars. What lofty thought! Where did you find it? How did you discover it?
Let me think. In your eyes. It is, therefore, an image of the cosmos. And that is the reason why Buddha is holding the earth bulb in his lap, brooding on it with a steady gaze, in order that he may behold it spread outward and upward as it becomes transformed into heaven. This poor earth must turn into a heaven. That is what Buddha is waiting for.
I see now. Are not the snow crystals six-pointed too, like the hyacinth lily?
You are right. Thus, the snow crystal is a falling star.
And the snowdrop is a star of snow, grown out of the snow.
But the largest and most beautiful of all the stars in the firmament, the red and yellow Sirius, is the narcissus, with its yellow and red cup, and its 6 white rays.
Have you seen the shallot bloom?
Indeed, I have. It hides its flowers within a ball, a globe resembling the celestial one, and strewn, like that, with white stars.
What a tremendous thought! Whose was it?
Yours.
No, yours.
Ours, then. We have jointly given birth to something. We are wedded.
Not yet.
What more remains?
To await the coming ordeal in patience.
I am ready for it. Tell me, why do your parents sit there so silently, without saying a single word?
Because they have nothing to say to each other, and because neither one believes what the other says. This is the way my father puts it. What is the use of talking when you can't fool each other anyhow?
That's horrible.
Here comes the cook. Look how big and fat she is.
What does she want?
Ask me about the dinner. You see, I am looking after the house during my mother's illness.
Have we to bother about the kitchen, too?
We must eat. Look at that cook. I can't bear the sight of her.
What kind of a monster is she?
She belongs to the Hummel family of vampires. She is eating us alive.
Why don't you discharge her?
Because she won't leave. We can do nothing with her, and we've got her for the sake of our sins. Don't you see that we are pining and wasting away?
Don't you get enough to eat?
Plenty of dishes, but with all the nourishment gone from the food. She boils the life out of the beef and drinks the stock herself, while we get nothing but fibers and water. In the same way, when we have roast, she squeezes it dry. Then she eats the gravy and drinks the juice herself. She takes the strength and savor out of everything she touches. It is as if her eyes were leeches. When she has had coffee, we get the grounds. She drinks the wine and puts water into the bottles.
Kick her out.
We can't.
Why not?
We don't know. But she won't leave. And nobody can do anything with her. She's taken all our strength away from us.
Will you let me dispose of her?
No. It has to be as it is, I suppose. Here she is now. She will ask me what I wish for dinner, and I tell her, and then she will make objections, and in the end she has her own way.
Why don't you leave it to her entirely?
She won't let me.
What a strange house. It seems to be bewitched.
It is. Now she turned back on seeing you here.
The cook appearing suddenly in the doorway at that very moment.
No, that was not the reason.
She grins so that every tooth can be seen.
Get out of here!
When it suits me. Now it does suit me.
She disappears.
Don't lose your temper. You must practice patience. She is part of the ordeal we have to face in this house. We have a chambermaid, too, after whom we have to put everything back where it belongs.
Now I am sinking. Cor inete re. Music!
Wait!
Music!
Patience! This is named the Room of Ordeal. It is beautiful to look at, but is full of imperfections.
Incredible! Yet such things have to be borne. It is very beautiful, although a little cold. Why don't you have a fire?
Because the smoke comes into the room.
Have the chimney swept.
It doesn't help. Do you see that writing table?
Remarkably handsome.
But one leg is too short. Every day I put a piece of cork under that leg. Every day the chambermaid takes it away when she sweeps the room. Every day I have to cut a new piece. Both my penholder and my inkstand are covered with ink every morning, and I have to clean them after that woman, as sure as the sun rises. What is the worst thing you can think of?
To count the wash.
That's what I have to do. Ugh!
Anything else?
To be waked out of your sleep and have to get up and close the window which the chambermaid has left unlatched.
Anything else?
To get up on a ladder and tie on the cord which the chambermaid has torn from the window shade.
Anything else?
To sweep after her, to dust after her, to start the fire again after she has merely thrown some wood into the fireplace, to watch the damper in the fireplace, to wipe every glass, to set the table over again, to open the wine bottles, to see that the rooms are aired, to make over your bed, to rinse the water bottle that is green with sediment, to buy matches and soap which are always lacking, to wipe the chimneys and cut the wicks in order to keep the lamps from smoking, and in order to keep them from going out when we have company, I have to fill them myself.
Music!
Wait! The labor comes first. The labor of keeping the filth of life at a distance.
But you are wealthy, and you have 2 servants.
What does that help? What would it help to have 3? It is troublesome to live, and at times I get tired. Think, then, of adding a nursery.
The greatest of joys.
And the costliest. Is life really worth so much trouble?
It depends on the reward you expect for your labors. Oh, to win your hand, I would face anything.
Don't talk like that. You can never get me.
Why?
You mustn't ask.
You dropped your bracelet out of the window.
Yes, because my hand has grown too small.
The cook appears with a bottle of Japanese soy in her hand.
There is the one that eats me, and all the rest alive.
What has she in her hand?
This is my coloring bottle that has letters on it looking like scorpions. It's the soy that turns water into bouillon, and that takes the place of gravy. You can make cabbage soup out of it, or mock turtle soup, if you prefer.
Out with you!
You take the sap out of us, and we out of you. We keep the blood for ourselves and leave you the water, with the coloring. It's the color that counts. Now I shall leave, but I stay just the same, as long as I please.
She goes out.
Why has Bankson got a medal?
On account of his great merits.
Has he no faults?
Yes, great ones. But faults bring you no medals, you know.
Both smile.
You have a lot of secrets in this house.
As in all houses. Permit us to keep ours.
Do you care for frankness?
Within reason.
At times I am seized with a passionate craving to say all I think. Yet I know that the world would go to pieces if perfect frankness were the rule. I attended a funeral the other day in one of the churches, and it was very solemn and beautiful.
That of Mr. Hummel?
Yes, that of my pretended benefactor. An elderly friend of the deceased acted as a mace-bearer and stood at the head of the coffin. I was, in particular, impressed by the dignified manner and moving words of the minister. I had to cry. Everybody cried. A number of us went to a restaurant afterward, and there I learned that the man with the mace had been rather too friendly with the dead man's son.
The young lady stares at him, trying to make out the meaning of his words.
I learned, too, that the dead man had borrowed money of his son's devoted friend. And the next day the minister was arrested for embezzling the church funds. Nice, isn't it?
Oh!
Do you know what I am thinking of you now?
Don't tell, or I'll die.
I must, lest I die.
It is only in the asylum you say all that you think.
Exactly. My father died in a madhouse.
Was he sick?
No. Perfectly well. And yet mad. It broke out at last, and these were the circumstances. Like all of us, he was surrounded by a circle of acquaintances whom he called friends for the sake of convenience. And they were a lot of scoundrels, of course, as most people are. He had to have some society, however, as he couldn't sit all alone. As you know, no one tells people what he thinks of them under ordinary circumstances, and my father didn't do so either. He knew that they were false, and he knew the full extent of their perfidy, but being a wise man and well brought up, he remained always polite. One day he gave a big party. It was in the evening, naturally, and he was tired out by a hard day's work. Then the strain of keeping his thoughts to himself while talking a lot of damned rot to his guest.
The young lady is visibly shocked.
Well, while they were still at the table, he rapped for silence, raised his glass, and began to speak. Then something loosed the trigger, and in a long speech he stripped the whole company naked, one by one, telling them all he knew about their treacheries. At last, when utterly tired out, he sat down on the table itself, and told them all to go to hell.
Oh!
I was present, and I shall never forget what happened after that. My parents had a fight. The guests rushed for the doors, and my father was taken to a madhouse, where he died. To keep silent too long is like letting water stagnate, so that it rots. That is what has happened in this house. There is something rotten here, and yet I thought it paradise itself when I saw you enter here the first time. It was a Sunday morning, and I stood gazing into these rooms. Here I saw a colonel, who was no colonel. I had a generous benefactor, who was a robber, and had to hang himself. I saw a mummy, who was not a mummy, and a maiden. Oh, how about the maidenhood, by the by? Where is beauty to be found? In nature, and in my own mind, when it has donned its Sunday clothes? Where do we find honor and faith? In fairy tales and childish fancies. Where can I find anything that keeps its promise? Only in my own imagination. Your flowers have poisoned me, and now I am squirting their poison back at you. I asked you to become my wife, in a home full of poetry and song and music, and then the cook appeared. Sursum corda! Try once more to strike fire and purple out of the golden harp. Try, I ask you, I implore you on my knees.
As she does not move,
Then I must do it myself.
he picks up the harp, but is unable to make its strings sound.
It has grown deaf and dumb. Only think that the most beautiful flower of all can be so poisonous, that it can be more poisonous than any other one. There must be a curse on all creation, and on life itself. Why did you not want to become my bride? Because the very wellspring of life within you has been sickened. Now I can find how that vampire in the kitchen is sucking my life juices. She must be a Lamia, one of those that suck the blood of children. It is always in the servants' quarters that the seed leaves of the children are nipped, if it has not already happened in the bedroom. There are poisons that blind you, and others that open your eyes more widely. I must have been born with that second kind of poison, I fear, for I cannot regard what is ugly as beautiful, or call evil good. I cannot. They say that Jesus Christ descended into hell. It refers merely to his wanderings on this earth, his descent into that madhouse, that jail, that morgue. The earth. The madmen killed him when he wished to liberate them, but the robber was set free. It is always the robber who gets sympathy. Woe, woe is all of us! Savior of the world, save us. We are perishing.
Toward the end of the student's speech, the young lady has drooped more and more, She seems to be dying. At last she manages to reach a bell and rings for Bengtsson, who enters shortly afterward.
Bring the screen. Quick. I am dying.
Bengtsson fetches the screen, opens it, and places it so that the young lady is completely hidden behind it.
The liberator is approaching. Be welcome, thou pale and gentle one. Sleep, you beauteous, unhappy, and innocent creature, who have done nothing to deserve your own sufferings. Sleep while dreaming, and when you wake again, may you be greeted by a sun that does not burn, by a home without dust, by friends without stain, by a love without flaw. Thou wise and gentle Buddha, who sits waiting there to see a heaven sprout from this earth, endow us with patience in the hour of trial, and with purity of will, so that thy hope be not put to shame.
The strings of the harp begin to hum softly, and a white light pours into the room.
Seeing the sun, it seemed to my fancy that I beheld the spirit that's hidden. Man must forever reap what he planted. Happy is he who has done no evil. Wrong that was wrought in moments of anger never by added wrong can be righted. Kindness shown to the man whose sorrow sprang from your deed will serve you better. Fear and guilt have their home together. Happy indeed is the guiltless man.
A faint moaning sound is heard from behind the screen.
You poor little child, you child of a world of illusion, guilt, suffering, and death. A world of eternal change, disappointment, and pain. May the Lord of Heaven deal mercifully with you on your journey.
The whole room disappears, and in its place appears Beklin's The Island of Death. Soft music, very quiet and pleasantly wistful, is heard from without. Curtain. End of Act III. End of the Ghost Sonata by August Strindberg. Translated by Edwin Bjorkman.